Hey everybody, welcome to Roosters on Olentangy River Road in beautiful Columbus, Ohio. This is Lettermen Live, brought to you by our good friends at Roosters. It's a fun, casual joint. Actually, I don't know how fun or casual it's going to be today after just an absolutely
They're going to love it. They're going to love it.
Bizarre week in college football and a crazier weekend once the presidents got involved. Everybody knows where we stand on this right now. It's a fluid situation, but this thing is trending towards a full cancellation in the Big Ten, which is devastating and hard to wrap your mind around, especially because they haven't even tried to play any games yet. I'm Austin Ward. That's Michael Bennett back with us again. Schleg's over there in the middle, Anthony Schlegel, the difference, and my man Doug Worthington on the end. I guess I could probably just turn it over to Mr. Mac and Cheese Bites, and he might fill the entire show for the next 40 minutes. But he's fueling up on the Italian sub right now.
It is amazing, by the way.
All right.
Don't go to me first.
I got it. Come on, I got you. I'm gonna pass it back.
It's crazy, right? Okay, so I'm just going to say this off the top. It's a hard decision. Mike Bennett said this a number of times. He understands how tough it is. He's going to talk about that during this show. There are hundreds of Big Ten athletes that have their seasons potentially being ripped away. There are thousands of businesses in college communities that are about to probably go under, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars. I get it. This is a huge decision. What I have a hard time with is that they don't even try. You let them open training camp last week. You put out a schedule on Wednesday. And then 5 days later, the presidents say, you know what, let's stop. Let's just pull it out entirely. That I have a hard time with. The hardest thing I have a hard getting there with is if they decided to cancel on Sunday night and then told the players to go take a COVID test at 5:30 in the morning, go through a practice, that's just cruel and unusual punishment right there. Mentally, physically, all of it. It's bad.
Well said.
I can understand if the end result at some point was going to be cancellation.
Right.
The rest of it, I struggle to get there.
It is tough. We're dealing with different times. You look at, back in March when they pulled the plug on the NCAA tournament, nobody knew, what we were going to face when it comes down to this fall and just all the decisions that they have to make. Mike said it, alluded to it earlier, like, I don't want to have those jobs. My guy right here is all about the contingency plans, but they're just kind of shooting in the dark, trying to figure out, what the media is going to kind of, boost up far as ratings of what they're going to talk about. They don't know what they want to do. They don't have any idea. They don't want to put these kids at risk, but they need a football season to happen. So the powers that being are trying to crack some whips and make some sense of things and just put the temperature out there like, hey, we're not going to have a season. How do you feel? What are you going to say? Where's the chaos is going to come in? You see players say, we want to play. We see the hashtags. It is one of those things where we're going to hear about it all day and for the rest of the week until the verdict comes out. And I think even when the verdict comes out, we're going to still get a lot of backlash both ways.
Mike, every single Ohio State player that I've talked to, everyone that is on social media, the coaching staff, Gene Smith, all of those people have made it very clear that Ohio State wants to play. And they've been willing to accept the risks for a long time. But their voices don't seem to be the determining factor here. Presidents are going to be the ones that control the purse strings, and they're saying no. That's going to be really hard for these players to accept because of what they're willing to do to play.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is such a convoluted problem right now that it's hard to just point to.
Big word.
Is it that's a $5 word. Is it?
Well, he did get that degree over the weekend.
Got that degree.
It comes with the words.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to figure out, are they making these decisions based on the money? Are they making these decisions based on spectator health? Are they making these decisions based on player health? If it's player health, I don't believe you because it's never really been about player health.
Right.
And I think it's important to take into account ways to keep players healthy. And if they get the virus, then to keep them healthy and keep them separated from other people and mitigate those problems. But just to say we're doing this for the players are like, well, I risk breaking a bone or tearing a muscle or being paralyzed or whatever every day.
Every game, yep.
And as a peak athlete, COVID's not going to hit you the same way it hits someone in their 80s or something like that. So I think it's important to try to figure out, all right, why are these presidents, what are they doing? Are they looking out for smaller schools? Are they looking out for whatever it is? Because it sounds like they were able to get the spectators and make it so that nobody's going to get hurt or sick from watching the games. And the players all want to play, and they understand the risk. You accept a certain amount of risk playing football anyways.
Yeah, a huge amount.
A huge amount. So what is a real problem? Because if it's just the money, then we have some problems with that. That's not okay because these guys, a lot is on the line to play these seasons. Whether it's your NFL career, you could argue the scholarships. If they're not playing football, your scholarship is for playing football.
Yeah,
so there's a lot that goes into that. I don't understand why, especially the bigger schools, can't find ways to play.
Schlegs?
Okay.
Tapping you in, man. I'm just going
to. First off, was our new president that starts on September 1st, right? Was she on the call?
She was on the call on Sunday. She was not on the call on Saturday.
And she got a vote?
She got a vote.
Not knowing the situation of Ohio State, not talking with Gene Smith, not talking with – again, I don't know, right? Because the fact that they were like, oh, we're going to update her later. Like just like a little snapshot into Business 101 and being a leader, right? If I'm the future president of Ohio State, one, I want my chief operating officer on that call. I want to be on the call because I want to test my chief operating officer if they're going to ask the right questions and have the best interest of the Ohio State University in that conference call. Yeah. So I'm checking out my chief operating officer. Plus, I want to know, guess what? When Mickey Marotti took the job at Ohio State, when Urban got the job, right, his start date was January 2nd. Guess who was in the building in December that I was trying to interview with, right, to get a job and doing stuff for? Mickey Marotti. So at high level athletics and academics, it just doesn't start on September 1. So anybody that's out there that thinks that way because you're corporate, guess what? That's why corporate sticks, okay? Just so you know, right? So people that have a high GSF, we've already started before the start date, okay? So that's my one question. So now does she know the numbers of Ohio State? And I'm going to give you a little thing that actually Jimmy Harbaugh did, even though he should be taking his cleats off when he goes into recruit's house.
How about how crazy it is that we're at a point on this show where Jim Harbaugh is a voice of reason.
But he said this. I'm not going to mention their name, but the football program has had 11 positive tests out of 893 administered, right? We've had 2 positive tests of the last 417, and then of the last 353, they've had 0 positive tests. And they're doing the protocols, and it goes on from there. But then you hear about what our kids are doing, our student athletes are doing at Ohio State, and they, not only them, but their parents, right, feel safe. Because why? There's trust, there's relationship. They understand that Gene Smith, Ryan Day, all the staff, all the medical staff are putting them in the absolute best case scenario, safest environment possible to go out and do their craft.
Yep.
Right? Fair enough. I'll give you another example. We had a student who was an intern at Ohio State in 2011 that passed away, had a pre-existing heart condition. We're playing basketball as a strength staff. He collapsed in the Woody Hayes, right? Within 1 minute, we had our head trainers, an AED, and the paramedics on the line. We had people at the gate opening up. Again, that was an unforeseeable thing, but the place that it happened was the absolute best place for potential survival that he could have been in.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here. Right. Well, then I've heard other things on Twitter about, well, what about the coaches? What about all the essential workers that are of that age that understand the risks that are still going and doing their job? Mm-hmm. Right. So again, then I look at this and I think it all goes back. Are we going to live in fear? Right. Or are we going to live in hope? And that's the difference. People want to incite fear in you. Right? That's doubt, that anxiety, that's hesitation. That's what these leaders have. They hesitate because they are fearful of the backlash of what they do. Nobody in college football wants to be a first mover, and it should have started with the NCAA. They had an opportunity to get everybody back in March, just like everybody in our society did, and say, hey, Steph, it's shut down, right? What are we going to do as a family? Right. You're Zooming. I'm working. Who's going to do the kids' school? Right?
Yeah.
Where do we want to stay? Do we want to go back to Texas because they hadn't shut down Texas yet at this time? Do we want to go back down there and be with family because you can do everything remotely? At least they're with their family. Like, these are conversations that you have right from the onslaught. Right? The whole liability issue could have been something that they could have addressed a long time. It's called seeing things through a different prism, a different lens. Well, if you're an entrepreneur or you're an inventor, like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But again, these people don't, because again, their paycheck's guaranteed. Just like these kids, theirs not.
Yeah.
So you got suits making decisions for people that want to play. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I think, and Mike brought up this point.
I'm going to keep eating these mac and cheese bites. If you guys notice, I got two more. Because it's a bumpy type
This is going to be a big
It's a mac and cheese type day.
and Mike brought up this point, and you guys have all talked about this before. You all played the game at Ohio State and beyond. You know the risk that you were taking. Schlegs, that was a big appeal for you to even play the game.
I love hitting people.
Right.
But I bring on all the risk that is associated with me hitting people.
But I think, it's hard in my mind to get there with, did these presidents just now realize that football is a dangerous game?
Right.
Like, it's always been that way. And honestly, this isn't a political statement or anything, but being paralyzed is worse than getting COVID.
For sure.
That happens in football.
Right.
They haven't, at no point in the history of Ohio State, Big Ten, NCAA football, have I heard, at least recently, you know what, we should stop sponsoring football because these kids might get paralyzed. When was the last time you heard somebody say that?
Never going to happen.
They make too much money. It's too much of an opportunity. The guys like playing. It's important to schools to function, to have that. If you don't have college football down the street here, what really makes Ohio State – you guys have valuable degrees. I get that.
For sure.
Well, what makes it different than Kent State or Miami of Ohio? How are you going to get kids in the door? Well, it's because you're advertising one of the coolest experiences athletically that gives you this cachet around the globe,
right.
That Blocko brand. That doesn't come because people know that the James is a great cancer research institute. Right. I don't mean to make light of that because it is. But that's the fact of the matter. And you're going to take that away? You better have a plan for bringing it back because, you hear the players. Taraja Mitchell's out there saying, well, let's go play in the SEC. I don't think that that's a legitimate option for anybody involved. But they want to play football. They will do anything to do it. And that's the craziest part. The risk is always, always, always going to be there.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of like inflation right now. Like we're seeing something in the market that happen that is never going to probably happen and occur again. We said it a couple of weeks ago when Michael said we might not have football. We might not have football. So when we see that and see what it does to a city, see what it does to a university, and then we double back with all these kids realizing how much money's been pulled out, then it's like, you're gonna hate it, but hey, we're worth such and such to the whole campus and to the whole, retail industry and the whole Columbus, Ohio owes us such and such.
Yep.
So when it comes down to what we're seeing and how, the world kind of cleanses itself. It fixes itself. This is something amazing that's happening at a time that in my lifetime, it's crazy. So to see the game of sports, which is all of America now, like baseball is cool, but we know when it comes down to the fall, what people are really watching. So now Saturdays are at stake, Sundays are at stake.
Yeah.
Like people are going crazy, and rightfully so. So these kids are really like Schlegel said, is getting a business 101, and they're seeing how they're the assets. So when it comes down to the drawing tables and what's going on, after all this madness happens, they're gonna have a lot more power. It's gonna be a lot more conversation of what type of money we're gonna get back on the field, what type of insurance are we gonna get back on this field, and it's a process that's kind of like just making its own self, work, and the NCAA can't stop the what's going on right now.
It's called self-correct, right?
Yeah.
Self-correcting itself. And I tell you what, this is, again, you go back to mitigating this, like what the heck do these people do? I'm talking about NCAA and conferences with their time, right? Can we get a freaking whiteboard and say, hey, listen, we're going to do this image and likeness deal in 2021. That was the start date. What are you doing during your time? Why can't you expedite that, right? I'd rather have a good plan executed violently than a great plan executed in a week. That's patent. But honestly, that's all business and that's all life, right? You go execute as hard and violently as you possibly can, then you adapt, right? Proof David Copperfield, right? Because you got to learn on the fly. But my biggest thing is that the lack of leadership from the NCAA, the lack of communication, and again, we see it politically, of eliminating the agenda, right? And in the case of college football, for the student athlete in this perspective. And again, I go back to the real numbers, not the fear, right, that everybody wants, right, but the real numbers. Earlier at Ohio State, there were some positive tests. It's been mitigated. Zero tests or zero positives, right? You go look at how the NHL operating in a bubble, right? But the Marlins, they got it, but they're still returning to play. Games were postponed. That's why you had a flexible schedule. Right? So again, as we evolve, just saying no for the sake of no doesn't make any type of sense to me. Yeah. And it goes to a lack of leadership. And we could be the flag bearer. Unfortunately, where's Gordon? Bring Guy. Guy would have said 100%. He said he was going to suit up for WVU.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's go.
So I'm convinced it doesn't have anything to do with anything other than money.
Right.
And because you talk about the contingency plans, like we said it, they figured out how to keep spectators safe. It's not about players being safe. Players are always a little unsafe, and players are okay with that. So it only has to do with money. And if they can't come up with a contingency plan to be able to pay for football without doing whatever they got to do, then it's going to separate. And the NCAA really, I think, they had a hard time with this. Yeah. This is going to, I think it spells the end of the NCAA pretty soon. It shows, where their problems are, the lack of leadership. And if you've got these schools who demonstrate that we can do this, push comes to shove, we can solve these problems. We can get our guys out there. Our guys are trying to go to the NFL. Our guys are trying to bring in millions of people watching football. If we can still do that, then why are we listening to what the NCAA has to say about whether we're allowed to or not? And it all kind of boils down to what these smaller schools can afford to do. And I think that's really the tough part. Like, do you just kind of say, that's tough luck? If you don't have the money for football, then
go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
And that's you brought that up.
Proof David Copperfield, man.
And you brought that up a couple of weeks ago, Mike, with the Power 5 breaking away, and I believe that number is much smaller. It's 15 or 20 universities that are really committed and capable of playing the sport at that level. Yep. Okay, and if that's the case, then that's probably where this is heading at this breaking point, because it's not going to be this year. Again, with everybody saying they can just go join the Big 12 or the SEC, they can't do that, especially if the president is voting a no on playing. That's the one who
controls
controls
the issue right now.
That is the issue for Ohio State.
The issue for Ohio State
I can't underline that enough. Gene Smith, Ryan Day, every football player on the team, they all want to play. But you have government officials and you have school presidents, and then you have Gene Smith. Right. That's the way it works. They don't get to trump it. If Gene Smith was the owner of the team, like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, then hell yeah, I'll go play Alabama, I'll go play Georgia if they can play, which I'm not certain that that's going to be the case. But it's that then we're getting into the real crux of this situation. The reason that there's not a bubble, the reason that name, image, and likeness isn't in place yet, because they keep trying to protect this ideal of amateurism, which doesn't exist for these players. Because now we all know that you bring in $200 million a year at one school, and that the NCAA basketball tournament is a $1 billion television contract. Right. We all know that now.
Right. Facts.
So that's the issue.
So I mentioned it. Right. I mentioned it off camera, but everybody knows there's a ridiculous amount of inequality in the talent from one team to another in college football.
Right,
like you said, there's a good 15, 20
Sorry,
teams.
Rutgers.
It's the truth. There's a good 15, 20 teams where you choose that team to go to that school specifically because it gives you a better opportunity to reach the NFL than other schools. Right. There's a reason better talent goes to Ohio State over Northwestern. And it's not because the Ohio State education is necessarily better. It's because you have a better chance of going to the league if you excel at Ohio State than if you excel at Northwestern. Mm-hmm. So to tell these guys that you're on the same playing field, we're not playing for the same things.
Right.
I didn't go to Ohio State to play for the same thing that someone went to for Ball State. Once again, no offense to Ball State, but I
Mike, we use Rutgers as the example.
Okay, Rutgers, yeah, screw Rutgers. No, I think it's inevitable that these players that go to these specific schools to go to the NFL and to make millions of dollars, chase that dream, that they are going to have to be put up against other talent consistently that is trying to do the same things. And those other schools, they can keep their football programs just like they keep their, rifling programs and swimming programs that aren't making them much money. And you can go to those schools and have fun and chase those championships. But if you want to go to the NFL, you need to have this separate league it's already been created. Right. It's already there. It's just split up. So it's going to take some creative whatever to put that together, but it's already there. So if people go into Ohio State, you can keep that amateurism for those smaller schools, for Rutgers and Maryland. But if you're going to Ohio State, you can get paid off your likeness. You aren't given a second full-time job with academics when you're chasing this dream of football. There are ways to do this, and the NCAA is terrified of that because if they lose out on those big money schools,
so
what
Mike,
are they going to do?
I'm going to school just for football. I'm not even going to classes like that. So we're running into almost like Europe, how they have those soccer programs.
Exactly. It's been done.
It's been done. I like it. It's scary. I don't know what it looks like, right? I remember being a senior having to go down to the Buckeye corner and buy my aunt's jerseys because they was in a store. So the amateurisms and the way that they make money off of our likeness has been there. I mean, I think we've all got the check from the NCAA video games. So it's a beautiful realization that we're kind of upholding. Like, we know that these kids are valuable. We know what Ohio State means to the landscape of Columbus and college football. Now they're going to have to, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Now they're going to have to get some of them numbers out, and we're going to see what it takes them.
Well, Yeah, we got the Madden check.
Madden
We
check.
never got the NCAA ones because
Oh,
we just
no,
You should have been able to. You should have got one.
Oh man, Schlegs, you missed
Oh,
out.
Bannon
Whatever.
settlement.
Yeah, I never got one. They didn't have my address.
That's probably
Checks in the mail, Schlegs. All right. When as you guys were talking, I just started thinking about. I like the smaller league. I think it could be potentially. And you were talking 15 to 20. It could be 28, almost like another NFL, right?
Sure.
And again, like we've already talked about in the state of Ohio, you got Division 1 through 7, right? You could do the same thing. Like if you're a state champion at Division 1. Guess what? There's a Division 2, and when they have a ring too. They're state champion, right? So you can have multiple layers of that. We already currently have it, but let's just find the ones that want to go play. Here's the level which they want to play at, right? And now the biggest question in that regards will be when are the TV contracts up, or when they can be renegotiated, right? And then it's like, how do they get out of their whatever with the Big Ten, right? Their I don't know, their agreement that we're going to form this conference. But again, that goes back to the president. And do they want to say, hey, we're going to cut ties with this norm, right, and go into something of which is unprecedented? Well, guess what? That's how you make money. That's how you create a business. That's how you generate, wealth and for everybody. And then you can say, hey, listen, you know what? Hey, guys, here's a great model. Again, if you go to school or not, like I'm neither here nor there. I'm super happy that I had my undergraduate, but as the way our world has changed, like even an undergrad isn't really enough anymore, right? It's almost like you have to have a graduate degree, right? I mean, that's real talk,
100%.
right? So it's like, if that's not the case, then I'm going, but then can I come back and get it once I've tried to fulfill my thing? Those are all the things that are in there. But at the end of the day, it's definitely leading us toward this, new power conference that is going to be basically that feeder to the NFL. Yeah. And it's going to be the haves and the have-nots, and who wants to get on board now? Keep going. Go, man. Do it.
The hardest part is admitting that these student athletes are treated like professional athletes along with academic responsibilities. Yeah. So, especially at those bigger schools. And we're seeing this pushback from the president, because if the president admits that these student athletes are being held to this standard of athletic success, or they're being held to this standard of, you can get paid off your likeness, that changes the game. So they have to stay in their lane. They have, if she had voted to have Ohio State play football, then that kind of would have said, we think Ohio State is stronger than this. Right. And that would have started a whole separate conversation. Now, why Iowa and Nebraska voted beats me. I'm with them, but it beats me. But
But they got nothing to lose. Right, they got everything to gain. Yeah, they got everything to gain. Right, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you're in the middle of Iowa, right? Ames, Iowa, right? You're in Lincoln, Nebraska. What else is there? Of course, they're going to want to stay, because that's the engine of their entire population, right? And a lot of people from Iowa wants to go there. I mean, Columbus is that for us. We will sustain because we can get there. But hey, you know what? Iowa wanted to play. Hashtag let us play. Well, they're the ones that said we could do it. I might get a look. I might look at them. Right? Why are these other schools not? Like, maybe there's another pandemic, right? Maybe there's something new. And a year from now, that's why I completely disagree. This is something that we're going to be going through for quite some time, right? But you always got to work through it, right? That's to me, right? That's just how I feel. You just work through the problem, and then you adapt and overcome. You just keep pressing forward. And we are not doing that. We are being held in this assimilation of fear and not what is in the best interest of people. Because honestly, the numbers, and I'm looking at sports, right? We've all been around other people. We've all been social distancing. Wear the mask, hand sanitizer. We're all doing that. I've never had it. I know people that do. I know people that have died from it, right? And again, it's like, I don't know what the right answer is, but because somebody passes away doesn't mean you stop doing what you're doing. Period.
Right. All right, that's a good place. We're going to take a quick break.
I'm going to eat some
food,
man.
Get some mac and cheese bites. We'll be right back on Lettermen Live.
Roosters is one of the unique companies that we deal with. They're involved in everything we do, from our personal foundation to also the Cancer Research Fund. And that's from the Buckeye Cruise from Cancer to all the events leading up to the Buckeye Cruise.
They donate back to different organizations that are near and dear to their heart. And we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long, long time.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
All right, welcome back to Lettermen Live. It's a fun, casual conversation with a lot more passion than normal. As the four of us, hey, we want a season, obviously. And I've heard from so many players, we all have coaches, everybody involved in the sport, that need it, want it, will do anything to make it happen. But it's that one deciding vote, and it's interesting. Like, I feel for Christina Johnson, the
Her name's Christina.
Yeah,
with an A.
Yes, I feel for.
I
her.
always confuse Kristen and Christina.
Yeah, it's got the A.
Okay.
I feel for her because it's a difficult situation. She's not even technically the full-time president of the Buckeyes yet. I think that's August 24th is the start date. But because of what's happened, and if that report is accurate about 12 of the 14 presidents voting to cancel, and she is one of them, well, her tenure is officially beginning with the entirety of the fan base already coming out passionately against him. The same thing is true with Kevin Warren in year one of being the commissioner of the Big Ten.
Yep.
And then telling them to go light in practice today. Year one or pre-year one for Ohio State's new president, you're already up against the 8 ball with everyone behind you. That's just that. I don't know how you can come back from that.
Garbaggio. Hey, here's the deal, man. You feel sorry for her. I don't, right? They pay leaders well. She's making $1 million a year to make these difficult decisions.
Well said.
So you better have the right information before you go raising your hand that we ain't going to play football in Columbus, freaking Ohio.
Right.
I know that. But here's the other thing. Same thing with this guy from, the Big Ten commissioner, right? Kevin Warren. He came from the NFL. Great. He played basketball at Penn. That's a spring sport. Just because you ran football operations somewhere doesn't mean you know the game of football or the inherent things that go along with it. Yeah, you take boxing out, box them out the gym, right? But is that really truly physical contact? Have you ever been to camp? And what got me started with Warren was the fact that he was like, all right, it's only going to be limited to helmets only. Well, if we have that was his thing. That was his thing, right? It changed, right? And that was his thing. And I'm like, okay, if you got protocols in place moving forward, and we want to acclimate guys wearing pads, which we all know, like you got to wear pads, right? And you need to be able to be hit and feel that. And you want to test your standard of excellence, test it early. Right? Because if you going through contact, somehow through people that already have negative tests, because we've been testing everybody, give another negative test that turns into a positive while we're actually hitting each other, I'd rather know that the first week of August than I would 2 weeks later, which gets me back thinking that this cat already had his preconceived notion that he wanted the season canceled. Right? So again, put all those things together, and Mike brought up a great point. People that go to school at the Ohio State University do not know this. In philanthropic fundraising profession at Ohio State, and it is a profession because people get paid money to go raise money. Mm-hmm. The number one seller that everybody wants is Ohio State football tickets, man. Yep. Like, they got the golden key. If you go to the Med Center, or you go to the James, or you go to the Fisher College of Business, there's somebody that's going to drop $10 million in a wheel for the engineering department. But all the ones that want to do a $5 million deal also want dibs on a suite.
Right? Sideline passes.
Like that's how this works. Ohio State helps bring in all Ohio State football and basketball to a small degree, helps bring in the philanthropic money that is donated back to building engineering, our architectural, the new Med Center. Like, that is the engine that drives it. So we can say, hey, man, it's about academia. But at the end of the day, it's about the things that help drive academia, and that is the Ohio State University football program.
So I think it's tempting as a new president of the Ohio State University to come in and say, we're more than just football. Because Ohio State is more than just football. It has an incredible academic program.
I got 2 degrees from
an incredible
Mike.
business school, an incredible hospital, an incredible law school. It's an incredible school. But what Schlegel just said is true. It is run by Ohio State football. If you can't accept that Ohio State is damn near a religion in Ohio and definitely in Columbus, then you're going to have a hard time as president because your values aren't aligned with everybody else's value. Now, we do have to take into account all the smaller sports and all this other stuff, but those smaller sports are funded by football. Right. And that has always been the argument of if you pay Ohio State football players, can you pay other athletes?
Whatever they bring in.
It's Ohio State football rolls this city. It is what this city is, built around, as the engine around this city, and that's just a fact. It's not, us put football on a pedestal or anything else.
Facts.
I don't even know if that's how it is in every university.
Facts.
That's how it is here. So to not be on board with that before you've even started your job, that's tough sledding. Tough sledding.
Again, I don't want her job. I don't want to have that decision.
I do, Doug.
You want? I mean,
I just gotta have a doctor.
Hey, if you're going to be the commissioner of college football, how are you?
I can do them both, man. All gas, no brakes, Monster energy drinks.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
So
just interview, just feed me through my vein while we're working, Doug. Mac and cheese bites.
I'm with you. So my thing is like for her to have to sit at this helm and to realize that Ohio State is a religion and to realize that millions of dollars in the community is going to be lost without playing this season. But then has to look at it and say, hey, look at these kids. We have to protect. Like, it's one of those things where we know that the athletes will play. We know that the coaches want to go out there and showcase what they can do and getting these guys ready so they can further their career. Everybody is after that almighty dollar. But then it has to be, and it has been, that president or that person who's supposed to get all their feelings out of it, to get all of that, rah out of it and the money out of it to a certain extent, because obviously she knows that her budget is going to be different when it comes down to funding that university without having a program. She had to make some tough decisions. And again, I don't love it, but I can appreciate it because that's not my job. I wouldn't want to have his Schlegel might.
That's how you get a doctorate.
Listen, he might better do it. Macaroni bites every touchdown, whatever it looks like. But at the end of the day, man, I take my hat off to the people in power there. I hope they get it right. I hope we can figure it out. I hope these conversations are being addressed and everything is being brought to the table and we can figure this thing out. If not, guess what? We're going to move forward. Life goes on. And guess what? Things are going to grow. Something's going to come out of this. We might have no more Big Ten, no more SEC, and we might have just a college football landscape that rivals nothing. And then we're going city to city, state to state, doing different type of showcases. Kids are getting paid hand over foot. Some kids might not even go to NFL no more after they make a good old whop of money and come back and start another type of industry, another type of business. Things as we know it is turning on its head. I like it. I want football, but I like the crazy.
Well, here's my thing with making quick decisions like this. And again, we don't know the behind the scenes, right? Why do I view that we hired her as a president besides anything else? I'm not looking at her reputation. I'm looking at the fact of we are now, because of this crisis and because of Zoom, smaller colleges and people having to say, I'm going to pay $20,000 a year for a degree at this so-and-so school. That is going to be eliminated. Where did she come from? She ran the colleges of New York.
Yep,
I believe there were 64 colleges that she oversaw. That will be the model for big monster universities moving forward. It's basically acquisition. I'm acquiring other businesses, that mean higher education universities and colleges, to build my system of the Ohio State so I can have more breadth as how I distribute our education program, which means more money coming in, right? That's why I think we probably hired her. Now, if that's the case, and that's what you do at an elite level, I would like to think that being the leader of the Ohio State University, you called Gene Smith and said, what is your take on this? That really is the $1 million question as to, does Gene think we should play? And then if you had, again, your vice president, he's a VP at Ohio State, say we should play. Again, you don't know football, right? You're up there in New York. I don't know a really good football program up there, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to come here and then vote against us playing when Gene himself, and again, the head football coach and everything that's gone into it, the numbers of the team up north, those don't lie. I guarantee you ours are probably better.
Always better.
Right?
Definitely.
And if they said, we want to play, we should play, and then she comes back and says, no, we're not, that's going to be the problem. Bill, somebody get Berm on this, scooping. Let's find that out.
But, and all three of you have brought up this point about, making money, and you're talking about expanding the footprint. Well, nothing is going to make more money in my mind than a television contract with Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia. You think that they're making money now. Well, let's eliminate the fact that Rutgers is getting $55 million from the television contract.
The NFL makes $274 million per team.
Exactly.
32 of them.
Indiana, boom, that's gone. Okay? You can have a basketball league. You can make a little bit of money and fund that. People love that over there. Cool. But you're talking about Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, USC, a super league of those teams. What that television contract's going to go for?
Bananas.
Poof! There goes the car. What?
Think about. I remember. Oh, there you go. So that's why it's inevitable. When we were, I remember when I was in college, they had the 2022 schedule. I think came out that we were going to play Oregon or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that was this year.
Was that this year?
Yeah, we were supposed to play Oregon, man. What the Sam Dickens? I know, right? Well, crazy talk.
And so But everybody was so excited. We get to go play Oregon, or we're going to play Texas, or we're going to play Alabama or Notre Dame. Everyone's so pumped up. Ohio State fans are pumped up. Ohio State coaches and players are pumped up. Why aren't we doing this all the time? Why are we getting so excited about this one game out of the year where we get to play another top team from a different part of the country when we could have that all the time? That's why it's not, is this going to happen? It's, when is the NCAA going to slip up bad enough that makes these presidents decide to link up with other top football schools to create the conference? And I think we're seeing that happen now. I think the NCAA is panicking, and they're making all the wrong moves to keep this conference together.
There's a movie starring Tom Cruise called it was called All the Right Moves, but he made all the wrong ones.
That's the Bizarro world version right there.
When you have this discussion, it kind of makes me realize or think about my time in the NFL. I had a long career to certain standards of playing practice squad for 6 years in the NFL, literally. It's been a blessing because I got my pension. But when you have those guys to be able to, or those universities, and you got Alabama week 1, you got USC week 2, you got Notre Dame week 3, you're going to be hurting.
Okay.
Our roster, our scholarships got to go up. Our facilities got to get that much better. We got to have 6 years guaranteed. We got to have health insurance. We got to get money per game. We got to get a bunch of stuff to be able to play that type of competition all the time. The season's probably going to get down to 8 to 10. I mean, the stress on these kids' bodies are going to be subjected to like some harsh realities.
Sure.
And that's what I see. I mean, the NFL, so like, guys are greatly impacted by that extra 2 to 3 to 7 years or whatever the NFL average is of playing in that league. Limbs, knees, lower back, shoulders. I'm a testament to it. So I got my I know what's going on when it comes down to what the body does, what the mind does. And I love this game of football. Love this sports. But at the end of the day, like, the president had to do right now and say, like, the health of these kids, the health of their bodies going through that type of rigorous season, it has to attribute to dollars, compensation, health, and things for their betterment off the field. So, listen, it is like the world is throwing up some good madness right now. Some things is happening in our society that is once in a lifetime. So I'm excited for all the things to bring. I would love to see what happens with those kids' communities from them impoverished areas after they get this type of situate. I don't know how they can tie it down and help out different areas of the country for what these universities been able to, suck out of those places. Those kids are the lifeblood, and they come back. Sometimes they don't come back. I just was at Buffalo, New York. You know what I mean? I looked at where I grew up at. I wish I could have did more for the city of Buffalo, New York. At the end of the day, still being in Ohio, still knowing what this university means. It's not UB, like you said. They got Syracuse and Rutgers up there, but there's no really good programs in New York. When it comes down to what you have in this short window, it is going to be magnified about what these kids are about to get themselves into, what these universities are going to get themselves into to these big old sports and these big old programs.
Which is why they got to be compensated from the TV rights and the money.
Right.
Right? Because if you're going to go through a rigor of, let's just say it's 20 teams, right? And let's say you play, 5, 6 conference games, and then maybe you go to the other non-conference ones, right? And you play 3 of those, still going to be the best on the best all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what ratings want. People want to see good on good.
Yep.
And so their bodies are going to, that's the beauty of our schedule, right? Like, we got freaking Rutgers, man. Okay. I'm playing a quarter. I'm playing a half.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's a half saved on your body, and that's why, like, with Master Teague being able to get all those reps, which was fantastic for J.K. Dobbins in the year that he had, because it kept him healthy.
Yep.
He didn't have to be that workhorse all the time. But when it comes down to it, and you got to go win, your part of the division in that super conference, like, guys are going to be pushing the envelope, which is then potentially going to shorten their life cycle in the NFL, right? So all those things got to be put in play, which is, again, with the players being able to find their voice during this time, it's going to come to a head to where either they unionize or they say, guess what, you're not going to be able to do it without us, therefore we're not going to do it until these demands are met, right, for us to proceed going forward. The hardest thing is it always goes back to you're only as valuable as your second best option. And a lot of student athletes don't have a second best option. I know if I didn't have a scholarship coming out of high school, I had to go pay for my own college, right? Like, not everybody has an opportunity to go. And so we are dependent upon a scholarship to get a degree and to play football at the next level. So everybody's staying out saying, hey, we're not going to do it, right? We're going to strike, right? Not everybody has the luxury to be able to go do that. And that is the problem for that potential unionizing of amateur athletes, college athletes, is going to be difficult.
So I don't know if you guys.
So somebody has to take a step and do it for them.
Right.
I don't know if you guys remember when I was in college. I know players in the Big Ten did try to unionize.
Yeah,
Northwestern did. And we were in talks. We talked with King Coulter about what they were doing and thinking about bringing that to Ohio State. I know you're excited to hear that, but
I don't care.
But it was a real discussion because as players, you put you're putting your stuff on the line every single day. You're putting in so much work. You know, we're up at 4:30 and we don't get to go home from study tables until 10 p.m.
You weren't up at 4:30, Mike.
We had some workouts at 4:30. It may have been just a week.
No.
Hey, man, I know you know.
I know.
When were
I
we
was up at 4:30.
Oh, look at you. You just must be Hercules.
We had 6
Just there by himself, huh,
We
Mike?
had 6 a.m. workouts.
6 a.m.
But still, I mean, yeah, you were there in 11. All right.
Yeah,
you
when
there
we
in
were
12.
at 4:30 a.m. workouts.
In 2012, we did have a week of 5 a.m.ers.
Hey, it felt like
That
a
was
couple
before
years.
the rule, though.
It felt like a couple
That was
years.
before the rule.
That was before the rule.
Oh, was there a rule? Am I getting people in trouble?
Well, I don't know. No, you're not getting
Well,
anybody in
you're
trouble.
invested.
Guess what, man? They don't pay my bills anymore. Who's David Copperfield?
Oh, man, I think I lost my track.
All right,
Mike,
keep going.
well,
You're
I'll
doing
get
amazing.
you back on it. First of all, I'm glad that you didn't tell us or leak it to be reported that you guys were working on this, because the city might have imploded if the union thing was going on in the middle of that season, because there was so much attention on Northwestern. It was just Northwestern doing it.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because I've never heard that you guys had any.
I didn't feel like it made sense for Ohio State. I didn't really fully understand what we were going to get out of unionizing. I didn't understand fully, just what that meant for amateur athletes. Now, if we go to compensation, heck yeah, you need to unionize. Like that's a whole different situation.
Right.
But as amateur athletes who are getting scholarships to go to school and play football, it didn't. The same problems weren't. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
To be frank, so I think that it's possible, but to unionize, you have to be workers first, and name and in rights and in compensation, and we're not that yet. So once it takes steps, and I think the union is going to be part of it. But I think first we need to be able to accept that these student athletes are employees. They're not just students who decided to play a sport because they liked playing that sport and they show up for games. Like this is, once again, it's 2 full-time jobs.
No, it's real, 100%, man. That was my hardest thing when I was at the Air Force Academy. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do all the military stuff. I'm going to do all the academic stuff. The other cadets, they get to go play intramural soccer, right? I'm down there watching film, trying to come back, and I'm trying to gain weight. So I got some kind of locker or some kind of cooler hidden under books with with chicken and milk so I could eat it at 9 o'clock at night because I'm trying to gain weight. Like, why can't you just feed me, bro?
Yeah.
I'm trying to go hit people, right?
It's
And that's real because, I mean, at Ohio State especially, and I know this, you know it, I mean, you have to have a high degree of discipline to be able to do and again, we train them for 8 hours. I'm talking like we are to the T now. It's not 7:59, 59. It's like 8 hours, right? And in those 8 hours, we expect everything you got. 46 seconds, point A to point B. That's in the off season, right? And then the other one, yeah, it's 20 hours. But guess what? There is no limit on time to be great.
Yep.
So though we might have you for 20 hours, it's also on you to put that work in. So again, that's more time. And time is, finite.
And it's not just the time. It's, okay, that 8 hours, we're getting our butts kicked for 8 hours. So to be like, okay, I feel like people hear that and they think, oh, okay, you work out, you go play football, you study, and then you just go to school and you study there. Like you're limping to class and you're just dead tired because you were up at 6 a.m. and you just did a 3-hour lift and a 3-hour practice and 2 hours of studying.
You had homework, right?
You had homework. So
those are exaggerated numbers by the 3 hours of lifts because there were never a 3-hour lift.
Hour and a half?
Yes.
Hour and a half lifts.
Maybe
3 hours
sometimes shorter.
3 hours of film, 2 hours of film. We had lunch in there.
Film,
You know what I'm
lunch,
saying?
practice.
I'm going to exaggerate. I'm telling a story.
I
I'm
know
a
you are.
storyteller.
I know you are.
Schlegel is trying to be careful now.
No, I'm not being careful. I'm not being careful, but I think what I'm trying to articulate here by saying like the numbers, but it's very real. Because when we lock you in for a 2-hour practice, and the 2-hour practice starts when you hit the field for the dynamic warm-up, not necessarily the practice time, not necessarily the prehab that goes into the workout, to the practice. Like people don't see all those things, and then you get done, then you got to go back, and actually, if you have a high GSF factor and you want to have a great degree and be above a 3.0, you got to go put work in it.
Big work.
Regardless of what the degree is in. Like you got to go work at being a student. So again, You got to go talk to other people. Like, you don't want to go talk to other classmates about doing a project, but you got to because your grade's dependent upon it, right? You still got to go to class. I always had a problem because I never went to class. Why? Because they wouldn't let me park wherever I wanted to. So, and I came from the Air Force Academy, and they put all the notes online. And I'm like, you mean to tell me they don't check class and they put the notes online? Poof, David Copperfield, man. I'll see you at the midterms and the finals, right? But again, you got to go work at it. And so these guys and what they do on being able to take care of their body, being able to learn their playbook, being able to watch film on themselves, being able to go to class, being able to be elite at a class. And if you look at Ohio State and our student athletes, especially, I can only talk about football, I know it's above a 3.0 GPA cumulatively. That's big time ball right there. So for those guys to be able to go and do all of that and then put that product on the field on Saturdays, the amount of discipline and mental and physical toughness that is required to do that is off the charts. Here's another one, 2014 National Championship. One guy that started the year, that didn't end the year. One position, quarterback. Everybody else, you had to go to class. You had to take care of your body, right? You had to continue to perform at a high level so you didn't get your job taken, right? That's all things outside of the facility that take away your time to be able to go win a national championship.
So I want to go full disclosure real quick about my senior year, because I want to say going into my senior year academically, I was right around a 3.5. And, I'm talented, all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't built like some of these other people who were just built for the NFL. And I made a business decision my senior year that said, I'm making football my full-time goal. And so I would go to my 8 a.m. class, and then I would go straight from there to football. And I would watch film, or I would just get in the hot tubs, cold tubs, or I'd go to the trainers, or I'd get a lift. I wouldn't usually lift extra.
No, listen.
But I would go there and watch a lot of film. And I made that decision. My grade had dropped to like a 3.0. It was tough, but the whole goal was I'm going to the NFL. This needs to be my full-time job. And I'm not saying everybody does that their senior year, junior year. No. There are plenty of guys. I mean, you hear those stories about guys who end up going to med school after their undergraduate degree, all that kind of stuff. But at some point, you got to make a decision on preparing for your career. People go to college to prepare for a career. And football, especially at Ohio State, you're preparing for a career in the NFL. And you need to start treating it that way. So when I say that to say from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., because then we had dinner and study table, we're working. And that's primarily, a couple hours of school, but that's primarily football. And so that time between 10 p.m. and when you go to bed is when you catch up on school. And then you got to be up in 6 hours for football. Right. And that's day in and that's day out. And this isn't some small thing where we're wondering, how are these guys going to get their education as well? It's part of it. That's a part of it, because I just got my degree yesterday, and that's a huge benefit of going to football, of playing football, is you get that scholarship, you get a degree from a great university. But if anybody is on the fence of, where's the priority? It's not a question. It's not.
And you know what? Here's the thing, though. You articulate that into the game of football, and everybody's like, that's a football player. Bump that, because I know for a fact there could be people that want to be the head project manager, or I want to be the vice president of marketing. And what do? You're going to take the project that's going to allow you to get the best recognition for the biggest brand. Or I'm going to go really put my time, energy, and effort and focus on this one project management job that I have, right, of the 5 that I got, because I know that's a $2.5 million, again, I'm just hypothetical, right? But I'm going to put more time, energy, and effort into that, because that's going to get me recognized far greater than these other ones. And I also know of how I divvy up my time. So everybody that has a career, just like what Mike is talking about, you yourself do that. So don't say, that's a student athlete doing that, and he's just there to play football. No, bump that. You do the exact same thing. Just want to be very, very clear about that, because that was a business choice for Mike, right? It's the same thing with all of us doing our day-to-day business. Who are we calling to make sales? Right? We do all those things. Where are we putting our time, energy, and effort? And in that situation, one, Mike's saying, I already got a 3.5. I got some room to give, right? Guess what? I'm going to go put more effort in this, because I've set myself up to have an opportunity, and I'm going to go do that, and I still walk away with a 3.0. Because at the end of the day, do you got your degree? Yes. All right, cool.
Lots of business decisions to be made as we watch what's happening. Just an absolutely crazy time in the history of college football, all happening really at once. Fantastic perspective. Always great to have Michael Bennett, Anthony Schlegel, and Doug Worthington give their thoughts. They've been through it. It's a tough time for all of us. We're hoping for the best and that something works out. But I can tell you right now that there's not a lot of optimism that it will. We'll keep you posted on that, of course, all year round, all day, every day at LettermenRow.com. Thanks for joining us for Lettermen Live at Roosters. I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you next week.